Hello everybody. Happy rainy Monday. That's right, rain. And hopefully it is nicer wherever you are. I got the window open a little bit. Got a little like mood rain happening. So if you hear something, that's probably what it is. But today we're talking about, why aren't you getting better at guitar? Now this is one I could easily look myself in the mirror and be like, hey, you should listen to your own advice here, bro. And I probably will do that after this video, not to be weird, probably. And I have a couple different points here that might help someone if you're practicing, trying to get better, which, that's what we're all doing all the time. And sometimes there's these little pitfalls. It's not necessarily about like, oh, you're not using your pinky just right or any of that kind of stuff. There's just these little things that I found that can really help whenever we're on this pursuit to get better at whatever it is that you're doing. So we're going to dive into these. Let me know if you have some tips down below. Like I said, I always love to compile this stuff in the comments. That way, there's a bunch of good advice usually that I don't even think of myself down there. So let's just go ahead and dive on into it. Alright, so first up is that you are not seeing yourself get better. Now what I'm talking about is, I was lucky enough to experience both sides of what I'm getting ready to mention. And that is that whenever you're practicing, of course, you are present every time you practice. And what I mean is that you see yourself playing constantly. So, even though you might not notice that you're getting better at something, you're moving microscopically through it. If you go to, say, a guitar teacher, like I would see this with students who would come in, I only saw them once a week, so they would come in a week later and be kind of like down, like, man, I'm not playing this better. And I would watch them, I'm like, no. I go, you're doing so much better. Watch what you're doing here now. I like the way you're moving your hand, or you're keeping your fingers close to the fingerboard, and like, oh, I guess I am doing that stuff. I'm like, you're getting better. It's hard sometimes because you can't see those big jumps and improvement because, like I said, you see yourself play all the time. And a way you can do this, and I can't stress it enough, is record yourself playing guitar. I remember when I first started playing guitar, this is before smartphones with cameras and all that kind of stuff, so I had a camcorder, like literally with tape, and I would record myself, and this was just practice. Like I didn't, have the foresight to be like, oh, I want to look back at this. I was just doing it for fun, but then I would find those tapes, a year later, I'm like, wow, I'm playing Enter Sandman so much better than I was back then, and it was a real motivator. I'm like, I am getting better, all this practice is paying off. And even recently, I was working on this idea of kind of moving through the scale. And I was like, man, I'm just not getting this down. And suddenly I did it in a song, a couple intros back. I did it, and I was like, hey, there's that lick. I did it. I was like, all of a sudden I kind of pulled it off. Whatever the lick was, how I did it, but it was a very similar thing. I was like, hey, all that practice, I kind of like did it instinctually. And I think that's just a huge reason why sometimes we aren't getting better, is because we need those little moments of like seeing ourselves get better. So I'm telling you, record yourself. It's so, so crucial. Now the next thing is that we spend a whole heck of a lot of time working on things that we're not good at. And I think that that's a great thing. Obviously you want to work on your weaknesses, but what happens is we get caught up only working on our weaknesses. Can you hear how heavy the rain is? The rain's really picked up and it's getting loud. Hopefully it's not distracting. But like I said, we focus so much on our weaknesses that sometimes we forget to practice what we're good at. Our strengths. I always say make your strengths stronger, and then get your weaknesses to where they're suddenly strengths. But we can't forget, like if you're really good at picking and you just are horrible at legato, and you spend all your time working on legato, it's hard to stay motivated because you're working on something that you're not good at. Just being honest. So I've always been much better at ascending than descending. So it's like if I spent all my time working on just descending scales all day long and never did anything else, it would be really unmotivating because I'm like, oh, but I can ascend, much better than I can descend. So I think what happens is we end up becoming discouraged because we're only focused on what we're not good at, and you get like, fixated on it and obsessed with it, and we forget like, oh yeah, well I'm also good at this stuff. Like, play the other stuff because the stuff that you're already good at is going to be very rewarding, and that's going to help keep you motivated to work on the things that you're not good at. And I think we all fall into that trap sometimes. We just get real fixated on on what we're not good at, and we forget to also play and practice what we already know. Now next is what I've talked about in other videos, but there does need to be some kind of structure. Now whether you're the type of person who wants to sit down and run through scales and do all those things, to each their own. But there has to be some kind of structure, and that structure could be working on learning a new song, working on a solo, whatever it might be, but there has to be some part of your playing that isn't just noodling around. And I don't mean that in like a, mean, disrespectful way, because I'm guilty of it too. I come in here, sometimes it's good just to have 15 minutes of just like, all right, I'm just going to goof around and... just nonsense playing. I also try to have structured concepts still to this day. And I think I'll keep that, no matter how long I play guitar, I want to make sure that I'm working on things. Like how I showed you the lick that I was working on earlier. I'm always, trying to work on navigating differently. I was just doing that little intro song, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm working on outlining the chords more whenever I'm playing. Like, if you listen to the way that intro went, and I went, like when I was on that, when I was on the G chord, I went, that's a G chord on top of the G. Then I went to D. So these are all things that I'm actively seeking out and working on. I'm not just kind of like fumbling around, and then I'm like, oh, I guess that kind of works. I work on improvising, I'm working on trying to visualize the chord tones, and then just lots of stuff like that. Like, there has to be some element of structure, because if there's no structure? If there's no structure, think of it like this. Like, if you're building a building, there's a plan. There's a plan to build the building up. You don't just start randomly, putting up walls and doing stuff. It's like, if you want it to be strong and sturdy and have a great foundation, you've got to have structure to it. Now the final one here is a little bit different. I'm going to throw a couple different things in here. So the first thing I'm just going to talk about is make sure that you are, always have some element of fun into your practice routine, into your playing, whether it's just playing a couple riffs that you like or whatever it is. Very crucial, very important. And another thing that I think sometimes people might neglect, because, again, we get focused on the playing side of it, is honestly your gear. Now, you don't need to have the best gear. You don't need that, that 68 Marshall Super Bass, late tranny, none of that kind of stuff. You don't need a, boogie. You don't need any of those things. But what you do need is you need a guitar that is playing properly. So whether you have the ability to take it to a place and get it set up, to get it where it's playing really good, I'm telling you, sometimes your gear, if it's fighting you, it can really hinder the way that you're playing. Or if your frets are fretting out and all these different things. I really recommend either getting your guitar set up, professionally, learn how to set it up yourself, which is, a really good thing. That's something another thing I'm working on personally, is learning how to actually set up my guitars and intonate them correctly. But that side of it, there's nothing that's going to hurt you more than having a guitar that the action's too high to where you're pushing the strings down and it's pushing the guitar out of tune, or a messed up nut on your guitar that your guitar won't stay in tune. Like, these are all things that will completely demotivate you to not practice, and if you're not practicing, you're not going to get better. So it's just something that, it's not all about the player sometimes, it's also about the gear. So if it's at all possible, like I said, make sure you got your guitar set up. It's going to help so much whenever you're working on things, especially with your playing. Like I said, the guitar can hold you back. Some people say it's all in the fingers, it's all in the hands, and you as a player, but the guitar itself can 100% inhibit your ability to get better. So other than that, guys, we're gonna bounce out. Ain't I just a ray of sunshine today? It must be this rainy day. We're gonna bounce it out of here. I will lay down some rhythm here for you at the end, and just have a good rest of your day. Have a great Monday. Like I said, it's a nice kind of chill Monday here, and I'll be back Wednesday with something cool that I've been waiting to show you guys, but I couldn't because the product wasn't officially released yet. But it is now, and it'll be here Wednesday. So let's get on it.